Since 1952, our members have recognized the best and the brightest student athletes as academic All-Americans during their collegiate careers. In 1988, the Academic All-America Hall of Fame was established, and former student athletes were selected annually for their outstanding contributions after college. They represent some of the most talented and gifted people in diverse fields such as medicine, business, civil service, education, science, and the military, as well as a cross-section of the most accomplished athletes in history, from Olympians and world champions to all-stars and record breakers. The inductees who share their stories about their student-athlete experience are what makes this event special. Today, we add to our list of outstanding Hall of Fame inductees. From Denison University, a former starting pitcher who became a New York Times best-selling author and keynote speaker for Fortune 500 companies. His book, Atomic Habits, has sold 15 million copies worldwide. James Clear. From the University of Mount Union, an acclaimed offensive lineman and wrestler who went on to help create over 25 companies at Notre Capital Ventures that has generated more than $7 billion in revenue. Steve Harter. From the University of Arkansas, a four-time All-American and individual NCAA national champion golfer who has gone on to be a major championship winner and top 10 performer on the LPGA Tour. Stacy Lewis. From Stanford University, a two-time Heisman Trophy runner-up and one of the most highly touted college quarterbacks during his time. He went on to become the first overall draft pick in the 2012 NFL Draft by the Indianapolis Colts. Andrew Luck. Ladies and gentlemen, the CSC Academic All-America Hall of Fame class of 2024.
Please come to the stage. Well, we did this event last year, and we literally had, like rocket scientists, and it's just incredible to see all of the people and what they have accomplished in their lives. If you want to sit down, and I'm sorry, we moved the microphones. Put one here. Thank you. There we go. Well, the Academic All-America Hall of Fame is comprised of groundbreaking leaders in the fields of medicine, political service, philanthropy, technology, science, and the arts, among others. And tonight we add to the list of amazing Hall of Fame inductees. Stacy Lewis is unable to be with us today. She is currently in the midst of preparations for the Solheim Cup as the captain of the 2024 U.S. team, and she is hard at work leading the top 12 U.S. players from the LPGA Tour as they work towards the most highly coveted trophy in women's professional golf competition. So thank you, Stacy. All right. Hi. Welcome. Hi. How are we doing? Good? Okay. I'm so excited because I'm going to start here because I'm not making this up. You could check my timestamp. I've already ordered Atomic Habits, and I was saving it for my flight to Europe next week.
It's good. You're the one.
There are 20,000,001 people I'm the one who have ordered that book. You were a pitcher at Denison University and began your career as a closer before becoming a starter the next 3 years. You were selected the 2028 Academic All-American second team, and you were a two-time Academic All-District selection. You've gone on to be a New York Times best-selling author, 60 languages worldwide, 20 million books. Where did the idea of Atomic Habits come from? And please help us get better. I need help.
Yeah. I was complaining to my publisher when I was working on the book that writing this book is wrecking all of my habits. And she said, we write the books we need. And that really resonated. I struggle with all the same stuff everybody else struggles with. Do I procrastinate? Sure, probably procrastinating on something right now. But I just wanted to be useful. I wanted to contribute something that was valuable or add my little bit to the pile and help people in some kind of meaningful way. And so I started writing about it, and here we are.
Here we are. Okay. You were a pitcher. I was curious because I think pitchers are very specific creatures. You have to put he can throw a pass in a radius. Your pitch has to be perfect within what's littler than inches? I'm not smart enough. Andrew, what is smaller? Millicentimeter?
Millimeters, good.
Millimeters, yeah. See? Sorry, I'm not a math person. How do you think your playing career helped you form kind of these ideas and your specific advocacy?
Yeah, a bunch of my teammates are here. They can tell you accuracy is my specialty. I learned a ton from playing. I think no matter what level I was at, I was never the best player on the team. I was never the fastest player on any team I was on. I was never the smartest kid in any class I was in. I've never been the one with the most hair. Even on the team that I got this award for, my teammate JD, one of my best friends here, and he was a better pitcher than I was. But the thing that I learned through that process, and I think something that is a strength of mine, is layering on strengths with each other. So I may not have been the smartest kid in the class or the best pitcher on the team, but I was a good combination of those two. Atomic Habits. I may not be the best writer in the world or the best marketer, but I'm a good combination of those two. And so it's by finding areas where I have overlap, that's kind of how I've made all the progress in my life. And so it's not trying to be number one, it's being the only one that has that combination. That's really where I've found my footing.
Oh, I love that, because I think we're all so self-critical. Oh, I'm not the best at this thing, but I can layer my skill set. I am the world's best packer. I don't know that I've spent my life traveling. I can pack a suitcase, but I don't know where to market that, or I don't know how to.
Hey, you just got to find what to combine that with.
See, so that's where, let's noodle that, everybody. But you had a great way of succeeding in college. You're here in this academic Hall of Fame for a reason. What were some of the things you did as a student that you can share with our group?
Habits and stuff, you mean?
Yes.
Yeah, I think I came into college, I was probably a little too uptight. I really liked the academic side. I've always liked sports and I've always liked school. And I'm fortunate to have a lot of my teammates here with me tonight. And I think those guys really loosened me up. They taught me about the other parts of life that maybe I was deficient on or wasn't focused enough on. And so it really helped balance me out. And I've tried to take that into life now. One of the things that I think is very easy to do in business is to start by asking, how can I make this project, whatever the thing is, the most successful it could be? And you end up with a bunch of things that are how can we make the most revenue possible or reach the most people possible? And people often talk themselves into living a life they don't actually really want to live just because that's the way to make the most money. And instead, a little bit from the balance I learned from those guys, how can I draw a box around what I want my day to look like? How do I want to live my days? And then inside that box, how can I reach the most people, make the biggest impact, make the most money, but not outside of it? And so I try to start with that question, how do I want to spend my days, and then optimize from there.
It's so fascinating. So I went through a battle with cancer, and the doctor told me one day, you need to start thinking about how you're spending your time. And that was his very polite way of saying, we don't know how much of it you have left. And so I just focused on what can I do today, but I don't think we should be dying or have cancer to do that, right? We can be doing that in our everyday life, so I appreciate you saying that. Okay, I'm going to move on because they told me I'm going long, but let's keep going on this theme. I think it's great. Our next award recipient is a two-sport athlete in football and wrestling at Mount Union from 1980 to 83. Steve Harter was an offensive lineman on the football team. He was a two-time All-Ohio Athletic Conference selection as well as MVP. He was also awarded the Ohio Athletic Conference's I'm going to say his name wrong, Wable. 50% chance, Wable Award for being the top offensive lineman. Then he went on to set a school record with 17 pins. So short story, good at everything, and you were terrific on the Dean's List each semester during your final 2 years. You have founded, I don't even know how this works. You've launched 25 companies. 8 companies that have generated $7 billion in revenue. You are the chairman and owner of Nomadic and donated thousands to bicycles that change young children's lives through education. From Mount Union, Steve Harter.
Thank you.
They'll put it on. Is it not on? Okay, good.
This isn't what I do for a living.
Okay, don't be nervous. We're just among friends here.
In communication, right? And
right.
I get to sit here and talk to these
To
people.
Communicators. But you know what we do love is a good story. So we want to know, how did you balance being a good football and wrestler, like not just good, like all conference, school records, and a great academic student?
Well, I started a vocational school as a carpenter, so I had a good base for my academics. I love sports. It was a great equalizer for me. I grew up very poor in rural Ohio. They now call it Appalachian Ohio. So this area of the country, coal mining, steel mills, things like that back in the 80s, and those were going away. And football, wrestling, it didn't matter how much money your daddy had, you had to deal with me. So I focused on, getting aggression out.
Yeah.
And those happen to be probably the two most physical sports you can play.
Is it out? Are we gonna have to wrestle it? Is it out?
Yeah, I think it's been out for a while.
Okay,
yeah.
good.
So, but balancing the sports, I just love competing. I love athletics. The academics really didn't come till later. My wife, Suzanne, who went to Mount Union with me, who was in the band and theater, she'll tell you I only ever had to study 2 years, and she had to study 16, and it just wasn't fair.
Okay. Well, she should be up here too then.
Yes.
We know who the real student is. Tell me, how have you taken your lessons from college and what you've gone through in your, starting out in vocational training as a carpenter, you've done a little bit of everything. Now you've started businesses. What have been some of the keys to success?
Well, the same things. Football being a team sport, obviously, me being an offensive lineman, there's no better team than a group of offensive linemen. I think Andrew will tell you that's
He's
true.
already nodded,
yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, the camaraderie with those guys, I could have played on either side of the ball. One day the coach asked who's our best defensive lineman, and the O-line coach said Steve Harter. And he says, well, he's a defensive lineman. He says, you asked me who our best defensive lineman was, right? So I love playing offensive line. I love the camaraderie. I loved everything about it. Going to the dinners the night before the games. That group just has a different mentality. You become very close to those guys. One guy makes a mistake. Well, business is kind of the same thing. I've said numerous times that everything I learned playing football, offensive line, translated very well into business. Building teams and not taking credit for things and letting other people shine. And, those were, things that I learned from that. Now, wrestling, that's a whole different sport. It's mano a mano. You're the man in the arena. It's you and one other person. There's no excuses. You either win or you lose. And I probably relive all those losses more times than I care to remember, because it's little things, simple things. If I'd have done that differently, I have to go into Mount Union and I have to look at this wall, and I finished 3 times second place. Now, there's 3 good reasons for it. I should have done it all 3 times. I should have won the conference championships. How do you pin 17 people in one season and you don't win the conference championship? Intramural basketball, twist an ankle, and you get underneath a 450-pound man, because back then we didn't have
weight classes. Oh my gosh.
So he falls on you and you lose. So, I got disqualified. I'm beating a guy 14-5, and I got disqualified with 1 second. And then my last one, I decided to wrestle my senior year. I'd already been drafted by the Memphis Showboats back in the old USFL. And I shot a takedown. I knew my knee wasn't real good, but it stuck in the mat, and I tore my ACL out. So that was the end of athletics.
But you know what? But what I'm hearing is you have held on to some of your failures. How have they driven you?
Well, I'm telling you, you learn more by failing than you learn by winning. And I have numerous failures. Now, I started 25 companies. They're not all successes. But when you fail, Henry Ford, I think the great quote is, failure is an opportunity to start over more intelligently. Well, I was in the taxi cab business, had 2,500 taxis in the state of Texas, the largest operator in the U.S., and this thing called Uber comes along, right? Illegal as hell. doesn't follow any rules. If I did what they did, I'd be in jail. So what I did is I kind of said, gee, this is interesting technology. So I built my own software company that does the same things that the Uber app does for other industries. So
layering the success, layering the skill set.
So if you kick my ass, I'm going to try to figure out a way to get back and come back. Right?
I see.
So that's kind of how I work, and so failure, So I have to go back and look at that wall. I know exactly why, but everybody else who walks in that room goes, "Oh, that guy."
That's
3 times second place. What the hell's wrong with him, right? So,
no, to this, when I first started covering Steve Spurrier, he'd won the Heisman, he'd won a national championship at Florida, and I went into his office and taped on his wall right where he sat was a newspaper article that says Spurrier gets fired. And that's what he kept in his office, is he wanted to drive himself the same way. So I love where you're thinking of. Okay, we're going to move on to someone who rarely fails. I mean, he's just like sunshine in a bottle. Andrew Luck's collegiate career lasted from 2008 to 2011. Stanford's all-time record holder in passing touchdowns, completion percentage, led his team to a record high of 12 wins, an appearance in the Orange and Fiesta Bowl. Star quarterback received major recognition as a 2-time Heisman Trophy runner-up. Oh, well, there's the failure, but I'm sure it helped you in the pros. It's a pretty good stage. Pac-12 Conference Offensive Player of the Year, all-team selection in both 2010, 2011, but this is what I've always appreciated about Andrew Luck. He graduated with his bachelor's degree in engineering while going to these great bowl games and winning all these games with a focus in architectural design. He was the CSC Academic All-American of the Year, 3-time All-Pac-12 Academic First Team honoree, and was drafted with the first overall pick in 2012 by the Indianapolis Colts. Too many things to keep going, Andrew, because you already know what they are. But you are already into the CSC Academic All-America Hall of Fame with your father. You are the only father-son combination. Your father was nominated and accepted. Andrew and Oliver, both in the Hall of Fame. Okay, so let's start there. It's so rare to be in the Hall of Fame with your father. What does that mean, and what are the similarities in personality that have allowed you to succeed like that?
Yeah, it's so cool. I can't lie about that. He's sitting right there. My mom and dad made it. So yeah, it's awesome. And I think when Warwick was talking, I think, oh my gosh, if you can see it, you can be it. And I think I was so fortunate to grow up in a home, where my dad played quarterback and went to law school, and like sports in school, they weren't binary, one or the other. They were it. And I had a role model that was in the home. And, as a kid, I was obsessed with any, I wish we had YouTube back in the day, because I was obsessed with any granular footage I could see of West Virginia quarterback, or hearing about what it was like to go through those Rhodes Scholar interviews to make it down the road, whatever. He didn't get a Rhodes Scholarship, just to be clear. I don't want to propagate false information, but super proud of that. Like that's cool. So I think I was fortunate. My siblings were fortunate to be in a home where that was a reality, and a loving home, and great parents, great loving home.
Okay, so we see so many parents these days that are obsessive about sports. It sounds like you grew up in a very balanced home where you had multiple interests and were good at all of them. How did your parents instill balance, and how are you doing that as a parent now?
Yeah, I'm not sure I was good at all of them. That's not for sure.
I have the stats right here.
I'll say, when I started playing middle school football, my dad ceased to be a coach, and he was just a dad. I wouldn't come home from games and get grilled about an interception or overly praised for something. It was always, good job, son, I love you. And it was the same for my mom. And my mom, we had books in our house, and we read, and she read to us, and she instilled a love of stories, and a love of reading, and a love of interest in other people's lives, and grateful for that. So, I think my parents let all 4 of us siblings sort of find our own path, and 3 of us ended up playing college sports. My brother played soccer for a couple years. My sister played volleyball. And by and large, I think they just let us have fun and let us follow our passion, and again, grateful for that.
your passion went in a couple of different directions. I just think it's so cool. So you go to the NFL, you have a successful career with the Colts, and then you decide on your own terms what you want the rest of your life to look like. How challenging was that to make that decision? But now you've gone back to college and gotten more degrees, and you're living this big, full life, like he's saying, you're deciding what your everyday looks like.
Yeah, it was challenging to retire from football and to quit. And that, I think every athlete, no matter at what level you end up stopping, there's a part of your identity that dies, and there is a grieving process. And I watched my wife go through it. After college gymnastics, she was a gymnast at Stanford. I'm sure you guys had similar experiences. I'm sure anybody who's played, high school, college, there's a part of you that dies. And I also, I think, had a realization, and certainly wasn't easy at times, but a realization. My gosh, I got 2/3 or 3/4 of the rest of my life left. I'm not going to sit here wallowing in self-pity or what could have been. I got to learn. I got to grow from these failures. I mean, I think what Steve, so a quick aside, a little bit of a small world for all three, at least from my perspective, for three of us up here. My last year playing on the Indianapolis Colts, I walked into Frank Reich's office, in the middle of the week, and on his desk he had Atomic Habits, as a book range. So that cover has been lodged in my mind since 2018,
wow.
Which I thought was, so when I saw it, I was like, that's cool. And then Steve, you went to high school football games that I played in. I grew up probably 20 minutes from the Harter family in Houston.
Sat with your father when you threw an interception. You got so mad. The next time you came on the field, he literally took the ball and ran 70 yards. It was a man playing with boys. I mean.
Wow, so small world there. And Steve, we were walking in, and my dad was like, Steve had that taxi business. I wonder how that taxi business is going. Dad, it's doing all right.
Ask him about 1845.
Absolutely. So a cool small world here, and humbled to be up here. And yeah, I got to go back like work. I think you find stuff to keep you going. And I went back and got a master's in education at Stanford. I know I spent a lot of motivation of that were how important coaches were in my life. I amazing parents, and I had amazing coaches that helped shape me. I stopped, like most boys, you stop listening to your parents when you're 12 or 13, something up there. And coaches and those men filled an incredible space in my life. So thinking about coaches and education and this, what's amazing here in the States with college sports and high school sports and middle school sports and how important they are to our communities. So. And that's part of why I'm volunteer high school football coaching now, having the ability to give back into a game that gave me a bunch. And also I get to see you, Holly, on the road. We cross paths all the time.
Yes, we cross paths. So his wife is so bomb. She runs our women's gymnastics coverage. So if you saw the great coverage on ABC this year, his wife, Nicole, is kind of our expert gymnast in getting all of the scores and all of the connection between the truck and what's happening on the air. So your wife is also just kick ass.
I agree.
Yes, I agree. Okay, I know we're going too long, but I know you all want to hear from these people, so I'm trying to balance it. Before I let you go, you all have some common traits or threads with philanthropy and giving back. Tell me, before you leave, what do you want to give back to the people who are listening to you tonight that have all made you successful in your lives? Let's start with you.
I think the biggest thing for me is mentoring. Coach Wable, the reason I had to study for 2 years was because he pulled me into his office at the spring. Here's your 6'4", 275-pound tackle. He runs a 4.8. He's got 2 years of eligibility. And he pulls me in the office and, Steve, if you're not on the dean's list, I'm not going to put you up for All-American. And today's world, think about the character that coach had to do that, right? He knew there were bigger schools that were interested in me, going other places, but he did what was right for me. And another gentleman who should be sitting up here someday is a gentleman named Ken Pimpton. Ken Pimpton went to Howard University, played linebacker, 4.0 student. The ISD needs to take notes here from that university. But he took a young guy who couldn't write very well and spent the extra time with him to make sure I could write at the business level. And I helped him coach his son's Little League football team, so we built a great relationship. He just retired from the NFL as their compliance officer. Tremendous human being. And so I've been fortunate. People who looked at me and said, Steve, you're really good at this, but So you need to do something else. So my life, most of the things I've done revolve around education and mentorship and scholarships. And those are the things that we ran a mentoring program in the 5th Ward of Houston, the worst school in the city. With Oliver later taking it to the next level, we started a 4-team league for soccer. We gave them ESL computer learning using NIHouse software. I brought 50 people into the school. We mentored 100 kids, each kid 2 times a month. We took them to U of H, Mexican American Studies program, and we showed them, hey, there's kids that look like you, right, on this campus. Giving them the confidence. We ran it for 10 years. We had a big celebration. All these kids came back. And people say, why do you do this kind of stuff? Well, it makes me feel good about myself. You know,
it does, but like Andrew was just saying, if you can see it, you can be it. And you're giving kids an opportunity. You're letting them see what the possibilities in the world are. Okay, I'm going to move to James because we're out of time here. But James, tell us what... I know I'm going to read your book. We'll all read your book. We'll all commit to buying the book. I mean, not that you need more than 20 million copies, but you're going to get about 200 people tonight are going to buy that book. But what have you learned that you want to pass on to us that we can get better tonight when we walk out of this room?
Well, you asked about giving back. I think about giving back in kind of 2 ways. So there's giving back at scale. So the things that I write, for example, I could never talk to 20 million people in my life, but something that I write could reach that many people. And that's like low touch. How much difference does reading a book make? I don't know. You know, if it reaches you at the right point in your life, maybe it's an inflection point, but it's relatively low touch. And then there's low scale, but high touch. And that's like the time that I spend with my family or my kids or my friends. And, you know, for the high touch stuff, your time is limited and you can pretend to care, but you can't pretend to show up. And so that's what I think about a lot with my kids is like, it's just time. You know, I'm trying to step into this role of being a dad and spending a lot of time with them. And, you know, it's one of the great things about this weekend, just like time with friends. You know, they came out here to support me and it's great to spend some time with them. So I try to have a balance of those 2 buckets. You know, like, do I have some things that are high scale that I can reach a lot of people and maybe plant a seed of an idea? And do I have things that are high touch and that I'm investing deeply in the relationships that matter most?
You can pretend to care, but you cannot pretend to show up. That is what we can all do well in our jobs, by showing up. Like, I think we do all deeply care in this room, but we got to show up, we got to be there, and we got to make that time. I love that quote. Andrew.
Yeah, I think kids it's salient in my life as well, a 4-year-old and a 2-year-old, and we live right off of Stanford's campus, and you know, if we're looking for something to do, we ride onto campus and we go watch sporting events. And really this year, I saw my 4-year-old's eyes start to open. And when she looks at college gymnasts or softball players, when Nyjah Kennedy walks by on campus, and then and she hands my daughter a yellow softball, and they're not soft, they're really hard. They're not good little kid toys.
Nyjah, Player of the Year. Division I softball player of the year. Yeah,
and she's amazing. And then we go watch her pitch, and we watch my daughter see a full stadium watching softball, or we go to, Tara Vanderveer gives them a high five after a basketball game, and Cameron Brink and Kiki Uriafen are there. And so salient to me is that if you can see it, you can be it. Watching my daughters watch these amazing student athletes that are kind, that are joyful, that play with joy, that interact with kindness, with young ladies, and in a full spectrum of what girls should look like or be like. You get the whole gamut. I think of how important the sports and the stage and the visibility and the stories that all of you guys unearth and share with the world, how important that is for a generation growing up in a world that's a little different than how we all grew up. And I think important, real, and frankly, it gives me so much hope for my daughters and how they're going to grow up.
I can vividly remember, who was your SID in college? I'm putting you on the spot. I vividly remember the architect story. So you wanted to be an architect, and they took you on campus, and you talked about the architecture of the tower and buildings. And I'm like, those are stories that will live in your mind forever, and that's what we're all trying to do. I know we went too long. Thank you for your patience. Just some incredible people here, so we wanted to hear from them. Thank you again to our Academic All-America Hall of Fame class
Thank you.
of 2024.
Thank you.